In Portugal, there's a YouTube show full of fun facts you need to know. Carl rings the bell and the members show to the GuMPer morning show. Featured guests will come and they will blow your mind. The audience will do so in kind. A little vanity mixed with some insanity on the morning show with GuMPer. Hey, you GuMPers.
Hola, bom dia, alegria. Hey, you GuMPers. How you doing this morning? Tudo bem? Como estás? Hope you're well. We're putting the sesh into sexta-feira today here on the Good Morning Portugal show. Let's have a nice upbeat and easy one this morning. I say that as I'm tempted to go and have a look at the news at the Portugal News and the Portugal Resident, because a couple of things have caught my eye. So I'm thinking maybe best to do that early on. Mrs. M might be joining us, if not in the early segment, then later on when Phil and Ian join us, of course. And they are the guardians of our physical and mental well-being. I don't know if they know that, but that is the honor I'm bestowing upon them, as you can see on the ticker table. Hola, bon dia, alegria to you. It's the first thing you read when you go to our website, all the W's, goodmorningportugal.com. And talking of our website and our community and what we're trying to do, thank you so much, Amy, overnight, stepping in and covering our graphic production costs. So thank you very much for choosing that level of membership and support for us. Do really appreciate you and doing that, and all the supporter GuMPers who put their hands in their pockets and give us a bit of cash to keep the train on the tracks and keep the show on the road. So thank you so much, all of you. That's for me is a real Good Friday, feel Good Friday feeling. So how are your Portugal plans shaping up? We'll find out from Phil and Ian about how theirs are shaping up. If I can just say briefly, Phil, as you probably know, if you don't know Phil and Ian, you're in the right place this morning to check in on a couple of gentlemen who, as I say, have your physical and mental well-being at heart. And they also have of their love of Portugal, their respective loves of Portugal, of course. Ian's is a little bit further out than Phil's. Phil and Lady Kay have a beautiful, well, let me just show you a quick picture to whet your appetite about what's to come up later on in the show when Phil joins us. This is one of his buildings. It may be his only building. I don't know. He has some land, some promised land, I'll dare to say, near Monsanto, the most Portuguese of Portuguese villages, of course, as named and revered. So he can see the Boulder-esque Lord of the Rings type village of Monsanto in the distance from his beloved land. And a little bit of work is going on, as you can see there. Lick of paint, and that'll be absolutely fine, won't it? So we'll find out more about what has been going on there. The heavy lifting gear is in. Look at that. Heavy plants crossing. It's not the gardening Q&A, don't worry. Talking, though, of which, look at this, some beautiful foliage from his land there. So more pictures to come and a little bit of a slideshow and him talking us through the developments on site there at the moment. And Ian, a little bit of a longer-term plan, probably a D7 customer, client, user in the future, wanting to come to Portugal, a regular visitor, of course, but thinking of being here longer term as well. So we'll hear about Ian's plans, and that might be a good moment for other Brits to be thinking about how to approach the D7. We heard from one of our community, one of our folks who is part of the community here and moving from the UK to Portugal. What did they say? Let me have a look. I'll keep it anonymous just in case they don't want you to know who they are, and that's quite right too. But finally got a visa appointment. Earliest time is 14th of February at the Manchester Consulate. So things going fairly well, I think, in the scheme of things for Seth and moving to Portugal. But if you're a Brit, but you still have to wait for a first appointment well into, that to me looks like a long way away in February, well into 2023 there. So bear that in mind if you are a Brit and thinking of moving to Portugal. And we'll talk to Ian about his plans, and you might want to counsel him as he beautifully counsels us. I'll leave his God Squad tip of the day for him to read himself. But so you might have some advice for him, and you might be in the collective hive mind, giving and receiving information as we support each other on this Portugal-loving, community-contributed daily show that is the Good Morning Portugal show. Thank you so much for being here. So Phil and Ian to come with a touch of Mrs. M. I like a touch of Mrs. M first thing in the morning. Bon dia, GuMPers. Good morning to you, T-Duck. 5 ducks. From my point of view, I'm not sure about you, T-Duck. Let us know how you're feeling this morning, my friend. And feliz sexta-feira alegria. Oh, very nice. A joyful Friday, a happy, joyful Friday from T-Duck. And let's start with a deep thought of the day from the Starry, Starry Night Man. I would rather die of passion. Excuse me, I would rather not be belching like that whilst talking to you. But anyway, Vincent, let's go back to Vincent van Gogh or Gough. Do you say go or Gough? Because you don't have a co, do you? You have a cough. But then again, there's no U in Gough. I'm writing a little poem about this as I go. I would rather die of passion than of boredom, Vincent. Just call him Vincent. Vincent Willem van Gogh. I'm going to go with Gough personally. That's how I was brought up. Say Gough. He was a Dutch post-impressionist painter. Oh, I studied the Impressionists at A-level. Those were dull times. I nearly died of boredom rather than passion studying art. Isn't there an irony there? No disrespect to you, Mr. Roberts. He's probably long gone now, bless him. Post-impressionist painter who posthumously became one of the most famous and influential figures in Western art history. Of course, allegedly injuring himself, cutting his own ear off. Before I go into that story about which I know nothing about, except for the popular sort of cliched account of him doing that, maybe somebody who's more able to speak on the subject, the history of art in the post-impressionist age, might like to talk about that and why he did that. What's the truth behind Vincent cutting his ear off? Probably the fact that he would rather die of passion than boredom, or even unstemmed bleeding from the head. Rather that than be bored, Vincent? I don't know if that's how it went, but somebody may tell me this morning. We'll come back to the Portuguese saying of the day, a bit of Portuguese vocab, but it is along the lines of put a hand in the fire. For someone, that means you trust them completely. That's a lovely sentiment, and we'll come back to that. Hugo Nuno, let's do that. Let's do this now, and let's see if product placement of a kind has you running to the bakery wherever you are in the world to try and track down a pastel de nata. So Hugo Nuno, the family who invented the original pastéis de nata, the custard tart, of course, Nata King Cole, Frank Sinatra, etc., etc. And it's piri piri puns next week, everybody. Are you ready for those? I'm working on Piri Piri Mason. Fred Piri Piri, the famous English tennis player. Really? So back to the Hugo Nuno, though. The family who invented the original pastéis de nata in Lisbon's Belém district has kept the original recipe secret since the 19th century. And that's either because they don't want their competitors to copy them, or there's something in there that shouldn't be. And they can't possibly tell anyone. And they've been keeping that secret a long time. We've got elephant jokes as well this morning, thanks to T-Duck. Do you remember those as a kid, the elephant jokes? How do you know if an elephant's been sleeping in your bed or having sex in your front garden? Those jokes? Yes, you thought they were, you put them behind you. They've been brought back into our consciousness by T-Duck. And I'm sweeping up you could say that's what they deserve, to be littered around the floor of the studio. But I've swept a few up that I didn't quite get to. They're very good, actually, the ones that I missed. Isn't that a great irony? The best ones are the missed ones. Oh, life's like that sometimes, isn't it? Anyway, we've got a lot of dad jokes and a couple of dads joining us later, Phil and Ian. So stay tuned for those. Quite a lot of dad jokes involving elephants, circuses, Portuguese fishermen, magicians, and tires. Looking forward to those, and looking forward to the look on the faces of those who I share them with. Oh, I'm minded to look towards the end of the comments just to make sure. Carl, we can't hear you. Been broadcasting for 10 minutes, and sometimes it happens here, doesn't it? Carl, we can't hear you. Will someone text him and tell him he's live on air? So fortunately, everything's going okay so far. Touching wood at the moment. Oh, and just as I touch wood, We have Phil sound checking in the background. Excellent. He's up and at it early this morning. Morning, Phil. And James is with us this morning too. Love your pictures, Phil. Looking forward to talking through those with you. And from one tart to another, no, I don't. Bon dia, GuMPers. Not really, James. Bon dia, GuMPers. Feliz sexta a todos. So that's a way to lose friends and viewers, isn't it? With comments like that. Bon dia, GuMPers. Feliz sexta a todos. Como estão? From James. Muito bem, obrigado, meu amigo. And your cue this morning. I would loving the pace and the sentiments and the vibe of the show. That'll change, of course, when I look at the news in just a minute. But I think we need to do that from time to time for a surreality check. It's not a reality check, is it? It's a surreality check. Talking of post-impressionism, and that leading into the Dadaists and the surrealists and so on, and the abstractists. There wasn't an art movement called the abstractists, was there, Cole? No, there wasn't. Sorry, everybody. Cue this. Be at peace with everyone. No one is capable. I'm just going to check my sound levels here. Is everything sounding okay? I've got a funny feeling. I got a feeling. Be at peace with everyone. No one is capable of making you upset without your consent. Why isn't that button working? I want that celestial. There's nothing on that number. That's why there's nothing on that particular button. I'm going to do this again. Don't worry. Right. Be at peace with everyone. For no one is capable of making you upset without your consent. So, if you begin practicing the intention to be authentic and peaceful with everyone, you connect to peace itself and gain the power to change the energy of your relationships with family and friends. I'm going to put that to the test. Wayne Dyer, thank you so much. What a legend that Wayne Dyer was. Amazing man, a stalwart of the Hay House Publishing Company, right? And hanging out with Louise Hay. Some of you will know Hay House Books and the publishing company and the workshops and so on. In fact, I think Phil Cooklin may end up with Hay House one of these days. And we'll talk to him more about that. And his whole understanding of the power of the law of attraction and the power of manifestation, thoughts becoming things. Always love to talk to Phil about that. But we're in the same sort of department here, aren't we? But perhaps probably a little bit more practical, the advice from Wayne Dyer here. Actually, no, that would be a wrong thing to say that the law of attraction isn't practical. Of course it's practical, but that I suppose there is the down to earth end, the down to earth advice like this from Wayne Dyer. And the other parts that people struggle with, of like, if you put that into the universe, this might happen. That can be a little bit more difficult for people to get their heads around. And that's part of the problem, I guess. Phil will put me right on that, I'm sure, in a little bit later on. Yogi Berra, moving on from Wayne Dyer to Yogi Berra. If I didn't wake up, I'd still be sleeping. You see, that's profound. That's brilliantly profound, and I suspect that might have happened to Mrs. M this morning, given her absence here. Coach Turner, bon dia. GuMPer's looking forward to seeing you a little later. So Phil and Ian are ready, and we'll make a little note. We'll make a little cosmic post-it note of Ian Turner's God Squad tip of the day. Are we still working on our bellies? I don't think we are. We're talking about walking drills. Okay, that's good. Looking forward to that. Jean is in as well. Hola, bon dia, alegria. E feliz sexta-feira. Good morning to you, Jean. How you doing? And Mark, great to see you here, Mark. Thank you so much for being here. Stephen Wells, too. And the Susan Taxi. Oh, this morning. Bon dia, Carl, from Deagle. Weather report from Belfast from a blue sky. Enough blue in that to mend a patch in a hole in a sailor's trousers. Deagle this morning, perhaps not. Not going to get much higher than 6 degrees. Deagle, of course, enjoying the new Bruce Springsteen album. The Boss has some Motown covers out. If you like The Boss and you like Motown, that's the perfect hybrid combination for you. But not going to get much higher than 6 degrees. Mrs. M, how much is that in Fahrenheit? 42. And a low of, yes, thank you, Louisa, that's 26. I think Deagle, remembering Mrs. M's lessons, being schooled this week in how to convert the temperatures there from centigrade to Fahrenheit and vice versa. Vincent had mental issues. Who of us doesn't, quite honestly? He spent a lot of time and did a lot of painting in an asylum. Well, maybe that does distinguish him a little bit from some of us here. Dealing with the same issues, but in different ways, aren't we? Absinthe will do that to you. Oh, having you cut your ear off. Okay, so there's a little bit of an explanation as to why Vincent self-harmed in that way. Feliz fin de semana a todos from Francis. I'm reminded now, Francis, to invite you and others to take part. Well, there's 2 levels of cooperation, collaboration, communication, and other things beginning with C that I can't think of right now when it comes to the World Cup. And I think what happened with Portugal? Did Portugal play Nigeria yesterday? Ronaldo didn't make it because he had a little bit of a tummy upset. But the Portuguese coach referred 4-0, I'm guessing, to Portugal. Thank you, Phil. Excellent stuff. Feliz fin de semana. Way to go. Força Portugal. Well, that's a great start, isn't it? Stamping their authority on the tournament already, despite not having Ronaldo because he's got a little tummy upset. So, Francis, well, we've got you here on the screen, and I know you're a keen footy fan. And I know the non-footy fans will be going, oh, no, I hope Carl doesn't dwell too long on football here. We're not interested. Well, you might be when you realise you can be involved in our World Cup sweepstake. Further details to follow. But look at that. Look, you're talking about putting sexta-feira. Look at that sexy lineup there of Michael Heron. Phil might want to join this, and Ian too. We'll ask him later on. Why is he giggling in the background? Michael Owen, not Michael Owen. Michael, full stop, Owen. Michael Owen is not in. Although we could drag quite a few people to the website, couldn't we? Saying Michael, Owen, Frank, and Carl are there. Not with my inclusion in with football and analysis, I have to say. But that's the squad so far. And what I've done is I've given these gentlemen the Twitter logins. Is this a safe thing to do? Well, maybe, because Twitter might not exist by the end of today. One of the leading hashtag trends on Twitter at the moment is Twitter RIP, I think, because they're all locked out, aren't they? Or they're not going into work. What a mess! Imagine spending that much money on a company only to find yourself in so much trouble, Elon Musk over there. But anyway, back to our World Cup squad 22. Controversial World Cup, of course, a mixture of excitement and political upset and ethical quandary. See, that's the sort of commentary you're going to get here. I've given the Twitter logins to these gentlemen, and I'll give the Twitter logins to others who might want to correspond on the World Cup. While you're watching the match, you might want to tweet in and give on a live commentary on the pitch, on the hoof. On the hoof, yeah. And I tested it this morning. I tweeted across from the Portugal news their little tweet. Their news item. We'll go to their news page in just a moment. But according to the Portugal news, Ronaldo to miss Nigeria game. This was ahead of the match yesterday. Coach Fernando Santos has revealed that Cristiano did not train today due to a gastric indisposition. And that's why I tweeted it, because of that phrase there, a gastric indisposition. If you would... a bug by any other name, perhaps. And it was funny because I was thinking this yesterday. It's quite a big responsibility to be the chef, isn't it, for the squad? If you gave food poisoning to the whole squad, or do they all have a different chef each? That would be the best thing to do, wouldn't it? Is to have separate chefs for each player, so you don't poison the whole lot of them. But I mean, there's a lot of stake here. Pardon the pun. And they probably do eat steak, don't they? The breakfast, lunch, and dinner of champions, I'm hoping. But yeah, what a responsibility to be catering for the squad. So maybe they have their individual chefs. That would be the most sensible way of doing it. But if you'd like, point is, and I have already gone on about football too long for those who don't like it, I'm sure. But the point is, if you want to join our squad of reporters, I will give you the logins, and that will also be the page to look at if you just click on the World Cup 22 tab on the website at all the W's, goodmorningportugal.com. You'll be able to join in the fun. So we'll give you the logins, and that'll be the place to find out about the sweepstake. Are you up for that, Francis? I wonder. Right, edging our way steadily towards 9, where Phil and Ian would join us. Regarding dad jokes, James says the best ones are the ones not told. You're probably right. Or forgotten until they resurface to a head-slapping re-entry into our consciousness. Who doesn't like to touch some wood first thing in the morning? Marcus! I think that's probably going on over at Phil's this morning. The men are probably on the job over there as we speak. We'll find out a bit later on. No, they're not, apparently. We'll find out why later on. Carl, clear in... they start at 10. After the Sagresh, maybe. Car clear. They're in a cafe at the moment, getting ready to enter Phil's site. Who doesn't like to enter Phil's site first thing in the morning? Carl clear. Careful when you sip drinks, everybody. Carl clear in Belfast, no problems in here. Thank you for that bit of associate production. Oh, and we announced that, didn't we? The backstage pass. If you would like to be backstage, it's one of the benefits of being a member of the Good Morning Portugal community, of the levels of paid membership, any of them, from the smallest to the most, to the eye-wateringly large donations. If you're part of the membership in that way, join us. Just let me know, and you can sit backstage and, as I said, smell the chaos. And you can choose the comments as well. You can have a bit of fun backstage and eat the virtual snacks too. So backstage pass has just been announced as part of our membership system, which you can find out more about at coffee.com, ko-fi.com/GMP, of course. It's better to be pieced than pieced off. Well said. Is that an original there? Thank you, Francis, for that. Loved Wayne Dyer's Power of Intention CDs and PBS series. Excellent. Yes, he had a PBS series, did he? Is that known as pubes in the media industry, I wonder? But anyway, some people remember cassettes, don't they? Those Nightingale Conant collections. Some people had those on the back seat of their car, 12 cassettes. And where's cassette number 7? I think I might have thrown it out when I emptied the ashtray last time by the car wash. Yes, it might still be by the car wash. Was just about to join you, but the Littleys have grabbed me. No one likes being grabbed by the Littleys, do they? Mrs. M sorting that out. Bondiator, Jeff. I'll keep that between you and me, Jeff, just in case you do not want to share the information you shared with me yesterday. But forgive me, I can barely contain myself, Jeff. That's excellent news. Feliz fin semana. Feliz fin semana. Jeff, thank you for being here this morning. They had a great game. It's World Cup weekend. Yay! Wayne Dyer was one of the first to use the analogy of the computer programming term GAGO, garbage in, garbage out. And PEBCAC also, in the world of personal development, PEBCAC is also true, isn't it? Problem exists between keyboard and chair in regard to our thinking and what we pay attention to. Well done, Dyer. What an amazing legacy. I'll tell you what, I'm getting so much value at the moment listening to Gary Douglas and Dane here. Mrs. M will tell you that. It's even more boring than the World Cup, talking about the World Cup all the time. The amount of YouTube I'm watching of Dane here and Gary Douglas, access consciousness and the bars treatment that they do. Incredible contribution to personal development. And I need to find a bars practitioner or access consciousness person in Portugal. If you are that person, please do get in touch. Yeah, so it's Gigo, not Gago. Gago is something different, isn't it? I'm sure. It is cool, a cool 2 degrees here in Vancouver overnight. Will warm to 12 degrees in the coming days with rain expected to. It's a starry night there. And Feel Good Astrology, Mrs. M is saying, if you think you've got that much money, you can choose to take out a business too in ways we cannot fathom. I think you're talking about Elon Musk there, possibly. Might it be a starry night? Yes, starry nights. I think for quite a few people. It's funny the people who laugh at the childish sort of jokes here, and I'm so glad my wife does. PBS, not pubes. All in for the login. Oh, excellent. Okay. I'll make sure you get that, Francis, and you can be tweeting like a good one. Remember to sign your name at the end of the tweet as well, Francis, because otherwise we won't know who it is. Reincorporating a little Van Gogh. I think the Americans do say Van Gogh, don't they, rather than Van Gogh. And as long as T-Duck introduced elephant-related dad jokes, what? Oh, you've got some. Okay, let's do these quickly now then. How do you get down from an elephant? You don't. You get down from a duck. Well, that's good. That is very, very good. And I think Phil's got some elephant jokes as well. Okay, up early today for my first official Portuguese lesson. It's on, Jeff. Fantastic. Was an original. That is very good then. Thank you very much. Better to be pieced than pieced off. I was going to go, wasn't I? Was I not, to the newspapers? And you know what? I'm going to because we have to say, we don't have to say, we're going to say that the president, and Mrs. M is here as well, just adjusting her hair. Sorry about that, love. We'll come back to you in just a moment when you're fully adjusted. When you finished rummaging your delightful locks. Oh, she's ready now. She's tickled.
That was so funny.
Right.
I'd just woken up with very wiggly hair today, and I just thought, oh, I'm not going to brush it. I'm just going to kind of tease it out, just as you went onto the video.
Who doesn't like a teasing out?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Let me just share with you then, as you arrive.
I've been following from upstairs.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, I mean that's quite the compliment that you have been watching the show rather than just reading a Hello magazine or whatever.
I wouldn't even know where to buy a Hello magazine. So
well said. Well said. Before the esteemed gentlemen join us, those guardians of our well-being on a mental and physical level, which is an honor I have bestowed upon them, I think they're quite happy with that. And we'll find out later on. The president looking rather stern and stoic and concerned, and he has been concerned and stoic, I think, because he is urging calm about the missile strike in Poland. And this is a very useful story, I think, because it helps us not to jump to conclusions here. Yes, it does. President Marcelo has once again called for peace following a missile strike in Poland. Now, that is, you would hope, wouldn't you, that would be the first response of any decent statesman. Calm down, everybody. Good morning, Solomon. Did you have a nice birthday? He has urged for calm and peace, as we've been talking about.
Good. I think calm and peace is important.
Of course it is. The president of Portugal, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, in case you didn't know, said today, not only does he rescue maidens stuck out in a boat at sea and hug people when he sees them in the street, and receive death threats with bullets in the mail, I'll tell you. He's dealt with all of this, and now he's saying he is reassured by NATO's explanations regarding the missile strike, which killed 2 people in Poland yesterday. Now,
and he's just saying, calma, calma.
He is saying calma tranquilo, and obviously, the worst part of this is 2 people have been killed in Poland. Now, then you get into the what's made of it, and of course we know, don't we? The first casualty of war is the truth. And I did get a tweet from somebody who said, "Oh my God, the Russians have killed 2 Polish people," right? And that's the sort of problem that I think the president is urging us not to jump to those sort of conclusions, because as it turns out, after admitting that the explosion that killed 2 people in Poland was probably caused by a Ukrainian missile fired to defend Ukrainian territory against Russian cruise missile attacks, while still stressing that it is not Ukraine's fault, the NATO Secretary General said that the Atlantic Alliance's air defense systems are set up to defend against attack at all times. So we must be careful with the conclusions we're jumping to at this especially touchy time. And well done, the president of Portugal, for urging calm and tranquility rather than jumping to conclusions and bombing it out of people just in a fit of pique. So well done, Marcelo. Well done. Thank you very much for that. Mrs. M, I suspect you would have something to say about that. No, you don't.
Actually, no, I'm just feeling really chilled. I was checking out Facebook this morning because, the photos of giving birth and stuff, well, not giving birth, but like tiny baby photos that come up in my memories. But I also saw this little thing from 5 years ago, which has really got me thinking. And it's a reflective piece, 2 months to the day since we'd left Devon and came to Portugal. It was it's fascinating. I was wondering if I could read some of it out.
Please go on. Yes, this is a clarion call to our guardians of well-being who will be joining us after Mrs. M has shared this with you.
Yeah, well, I just think it shows the mindset that people are in. All the kinds of processes you go through in the first 2 months of leaving your country. So I said, 2 months ago today, we left Devon, our home of 6 interesting and wonderful years. We'd lived in a home we loved and said goodbye to many amazing people. We packed very carefully to ensure that our most precious things came with us in our magic bus, the Bongo camper van. Since then, we've slept at 11 different places, 14 for Carl as he had a mini trip away, because you flew back to the UK, didn't you? And are feeling quite disoriented. This adventure has taken us through northern Spain to Jerez, to a home with a dead bird under the kitchen table and with previous tenants who had not moved out as agreed, to a campsite that had most probably been affected by the subsequent forest fires, to an immaculate Airbnb but with a terrifyingly dangerous stairwell for 2 small kids, to a welcoming and friendly hotel, to Lisboa and all her delights, and to our current pad that is freezing cold, damp, mouldy, but has a home but is a home of sorts. During this time, our beloved camper van broke down and we've been without a vehicle for almost over a month. Luckily, we had an RAC cover, but tragically, it also meant putting ourselves at the mercy of local garages. Our beloved camper van is soon to be scrapped because the garages here lack the know-how to repair. It's Japanese. Our fault, really, having a Japanese vehicle. Which I think I did say at the time, didn't I? But
Oh
anyway.
my God. Have you not let that go yet? You said yourself 5 years ago, and you're still. We should have
Anyway,
bought a
listen,
board.
we've now got two options to
Astonished.
have it. We've now got two options to have it repatriated or to accept a settlement and forget about it. In Portugal, we can only use our vehicle for 90 days anyway. So we'd have had to
Yes.
repatriate our vehicle and we're hoping to sell it. So now we've got things to think about. Traveling about with a family has brought up all sorts of emotions for us all.
Yes.
Now, this is something that we all forget, you know, once we've kind of relaxed and everything. And we don't have the same escape routes that we previously once relied upon. Isn't that interesting? Neither the same list of support mechanisms in place. We have to resolve our differences quickly and in real time, and in the most difficult of circumstances, all the while trying to keep our two beautiful children from meltdown. During our first week away, my lovely mother had a serious fall due to a stroke. Oh God, that's brought up some emotions. And so was in hospital for a couple of weeks, and I'm glad to say she's making a wonderful recovery. Unexpected family issues really add to the confusion of moving abroad. I also found it difficult celebrating Digby's birthday here, as I felt guilty that he wasn't surrounded by our extended family and friends. Thankfully, he had a fabulous time with us. And these are just some of the extra considerations I hadn't really thought about before leaving. And then I think about what we've done really well and adjusting to this pace. We've experienced so much during this time, from beautiful walks to rock pooling, gorgeous digging on the beach, river beaches, meeting incredible people, getting to know the generosity of the Portuguese, the lovely food, and hearing some amazing stories. Both our children have been playing with new words, and Carl and I have remembered what it feels to be vulnerable because we can't communicate with the same ease that we might in the UK. We have grown, that's for sure. This experience has taken us to new limits of joy and totally brought us to our knees. I've noticed a slightly feral look to all of us, like me today. Like we're not quite relaxed enough to just relax, like we're anticipating something, but not sure what. Would we have entered into this journey knowingly if we could have seen these ups and downs ahead of us? We probably still would have. The children have blossomed and it's been a joy to see, even from when we have felt sucker punched. So what's next? And then I just talk about us, you know, wanting to go to Lisbon. But anyway,
that's beautiful.
I thought that was really fantastic.
Did you save that? Because you know that memoir I'm supposed to be writing. Should I?
Oh yeah, that one.
Yes, that I can. You should be writing it. That's beautifully recorded and read for us. Thank you very much. You haven't got the time. Thank you. All right, I'll cut and paste it and pretend I wrote it. Thank you very much for that. Right, Francis hasn't had much sleep, so the 2 a.m. jokes are coming out. Well, you're right at home here. It's 2. But that's what you can say, can't you? If you tell a bad joke, you say, well, it's 2 a.m. somewhere. And as well as it's better to be pieced than pieced off, he has another 2 a.m. joke for us here. And this sounds like a really good way to introduce Phil and Ian this morning. Lucky it was his ear, says Francis, and he isn't called Vincent Wangoff.
Oh my goodness. And look, we have the gents on with us. How lovely.
Wangoff, I'm still laughing about that. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
How are
I'm
you?
going to tease the hair out. Hang on.
You're looking beautiful.
Thanks, baby.
Wow. Oh, so good to see you both. And that's a really nice way of setting things up this morning, Mrs. M, talking about moving to Portugal, because Ian and Phil, as I'm reading them, as we see them on the screen, in case you haven't met them before, are also in various states of moving to Portugal. I was saying earlier on, Ian, in the longer distance for you, with talk this morning, we could dwell on the D7 and talk about what it's like for Brits to move to Portugal these days, and a process that Phil can put behind him largely now, because you are building boots on the ground and mortar being mixed, it would appear, on your site in beautiful central Portugal. Phil, how is that going? And should we have a little bit of a slideshow?
Oh yes, let's do a slideshow and I'll tell you how it's going.
Wow.
Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, so
do we get to see your wood?
Oh, honestly, what
I caught that joke earlier, Carl. That was very naughty.
Yeah.
That is
It was
exactly the right.
very naughty. I thought of an even naughtier one when you just said, "Can I see your wood?" So I'm glad I didn't say it.
Say it.
Let's just,
No,
shall we
I'm
just
way
leave
too
it hanging
polite.
there? Let's just leave it hanging there.
Let's
Okay.
leave the wood hanging.
Right. Oh dear. That's right. That is the right response, Ian. I mean, honestly,
it is before the watershed, isn't it?
it is before the
Yes.
water. Yes.
I don't know.
I
It's
don't
been
know,
raining
'cause
a lot.
somewhere
Somewhere
in the world, it's after watershed. Sorry.
Watershed.
Oh, sorry. What a man chooses to do in the privacy of his own woodshed is his own business, I'm guessing. But anyway.
All right. And I'm minded to say, what a beautiful structure, I have to say, Phil. There.
That's quite a good erection, isn't it?
Oh,
It looks like it's been
Yeah.
there a long time.
Mistake.
It's pre-51. That is the roof coming off. The roof was there and it was fairly sound. I don't know if you got the video link for that, but when they roll that timber off, it's quite an impressive thing. We're having a new roof put on it. We're doing all sorts of things. That is Castelo, which is and it lives. Castelo. It's funny. My dad's nickname for my mum was Bo, and of course Casa is his house, and my mum passed. So when my mum passed, we decided we'd name the house after, call it Castelo. And so you go online, don't you, to just make sure it doesn't mean elephant shite in some language or in some language or other. So you look up Castelo, and there on Urban Dictionary was the first Urban Dictionary I'd ever seen that didn't involve swearing, and it said Castelo stands for "come again soon and bring others."
That's fantastic.
Wow.
How serendipitous that it would be that.
That's incredible.
That's what the place is all about. And today, parked just next to our van, are some friends who've come over from the UK. They said, "Oh, we want to come and see what you're doing." I said, "But there's nowhere to stay." They said, "Okay, we'll fly into Lisbon. We'll rent a camper van and we'll come out and spend a few days with you." And they're here. Marcia and Derek are here with us, and we're going to climb up Monsanto this afternoon, and that's what it's all about. And then hopefully they'll come back and bring others. It's just going to be a place where lots of people come and be. I think it's a nice idea.
It's beautiful, Phil, and I think other people will. That word will spread round now. You'll inspire others, I'm sure, with that. Castelo, what a beautiful word and a lovely story behind it. Is it okay to show the picture of you and your friends? Are they happy with that?
Yeah, no problem.
So here you are.
We were in Castelo at Swagat. If you ever want a decent Nepalese Indian meal, Swagat. Castelo. I don't get any money for this, but it's just good. So I tell you.
Swagat is the Nepalese restaurant that you'll find in Castelo Branco, then?
Correct.
And a good evening was had by all. So love to Lady K, of course, as you see in the picture there, and your friends who... That's the spirit, isn't it? No worries. We'll fly over, we'll get a camper van, and we'll head out and see you. That's the spirit,
That's really gorgeous.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. I do have the video you mentioned. I don't... And you'll notice, I'm not sure of the order of these, so we will be jumping about all over the place. But
I don't mind.
No, we'll be fine, won't we? So here's 15 seconds of, I think, something to do with the roof anyway.
1, 2, 3.
Yay! Well done.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh my word!
And let me tell you, all the stuff that we've taken out of the house is going to be reintegrated into the land in some way. So the wooden boards that we're using to ensure that cement goes where we want it to will then get sanded down. We're going to use those for kitchen cabinet doors, because we looked at kitchen cabinets. You go around all these places, I want a kitchen, but I want it to feel rustic. I want it to feel quite real, and you can't really get it. I mean, you can get lovely matching kitchen doors, and that's not really what we want. We want something that's a little bit unique. And the guys who are doing the house for us are so brilliant at this, at just doing unique bits.
Well,
all the wood, all the tiles will be used somewhere else. It's all going to be used around the land.
And I can see Ian is watching with interest. Ian, let me tell you, has a really great design eye. And I'm sure you'd agree, Ian. The world has become quite homogenized, doesn't it? I mean, mainly IKEA, let's face it. You go to most houses around the Western world now, and things have become very similar, haven't they? And do you approve of Phil's ethic here to reuse and do something a little bit different?
Absolutely. I mean, when we're still finishing our house. We've been working on gardens in the last few days, and all of the excess building materials we had left over after the builders had finished, we've kind of used in the garden in some way, shape, or form. So absolutely, waste is not good for the environment, is it?
Quite. And
you've done all the back pocket.
Indeed, yeah. And what you've done in your garden, I think we've got a photograph of somewhere of your raised beds that you've been making. I can show people that.
Yeah.
Can I?
Yeah.
Very, very nice work that's been going on in Hertfordshire there. And you've done a lot of this yourself, have you? This has been keeping you fit.
The front garden woodwork I didn't do.
Right.
The back garden I did most of.
Okay, all right.
Which I could show you now if you wanted.
Well, let's have a little tour of that as well. Hold that for the moment. But that is this the front or the back?
This is the front garden.
That looks lovely, doesn't it?
That's from the pavement.
That's really sweet.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so
lots. Yeah,
Sorry,
I did all the planting and sort of sorting the beds out and filling them with stuff.
How'd you back?
That's kind of it's all right. You remember raised beds are great actually because you don't have to bend over very far.
Quite.
But you lift with your legs to use the coach's terms. Yes. So yeah, we did all that this week between the rain showers.
Oh, superb. Okay, yeah, I would love to see your garden and what's gone on there as well. I'd love to see a little bit of interesting and different design. Are you going to do that for us now?
Yeah, let's just do that quickly. I can hopefully show you.
We're seeing your lovely design job of your own design home there as well. Fantastic.
You can see.
Ooh,
so these plants are
wow.
just a couple of years old.
Yeah.
The lawn bit has been seeded last week, so that's it's a project in stages.
Very nice. Very nice.
So, yeah.
And interesting that you should want to move to Portugal after putting so much hard work in. But we'll talk more about that later.
That is one of the issues.
It is, isn't it? And you won't be alone in that, I'm sure, because of course people invest in their homes, don't they, and want to live somewhere beautiful where they are, whilst thinking about moving away as well. Humans are funny like that. Here are some more shots then of what I particularly love about this, back to Portugal now, and Phil's project here. It's all about updating on plans of moving to Portugal. Share yours as well, do please, in the chat. But this is is that what it looked like when you bought it? And look at that view as well. I'm getting a sense of that misty view in Castelo Branco there. Tell us about this view, please, if you will, Phil.
So that view is through the window that the space that they've created for the windows that are coming, which means that is actually facing up our land. Monsanto would be to your back. So from our land, we've got three unbelievable views. We've got Peña Garcia to one side, we've got the Gardenia to the other, and behind us is Monsanto. And you only realize how good they are when you look at the view that's going from our house, which is just straight up into bushes and trees, which is also beautiful. Unfortunately, it's a comparative, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? If it's the fourth of four views and it's not as good as the other three, you think, well, actually, it's not that great. But when you actually look at it, it is. And I think that's a life lesson, really, is that we do these comparatives. It's a bit like, you do playlists, for example, on Spotify, and you choose all the songs that you love. And yet, even as you've got that playlist, there will be some eventually that you will skip because you've graded them down from the ones that you truly love.
Yes, the rational mind at work, taking all the joy out of life. We've got to watch that.
Yeah.
Here are your builders. Is that your builders? Okay. Look, did they just make that hole, or are they repairing?
They have. They're fantastic. They both live locally. One's our next door neighbour about kilometre down the road, and the other one's our next door neighbour about 3 kilometres down the road,
Amazing.
and they're just fantastic guys. They built their own houses,
Really?
and we've been with them and had meals with their families and stuff, and they're because you've seen what they can do, you just think, okay, I want some of that.
Yeah.
And I think that can also be a big problem for people moving to Portugal, is finding somebody local that will do, will come up with ideas for you. It's very easy to get sidelined, and because you don't know, and so that it's not a straightforward journey. That journey to finding the right people to do stuff in your home. It's not a
Yes.
straightforward journey, but it's always the life lessons will always be there.
Yeah, but the scale of it, Phil, the scale of what you're doing here, just looking at these, that your first kitchen cabinet is in there on the right, I can see.
No, that's the old fireplace from the
Okay.
shepherd's hut. And when we bought this land, you can see the blackness going up the wall from where they lit the fire. This land, we had this long list of things to look for, as you all do when you're looking for the perfect thing. Had to have great views, had to have electricity. If it had running water, that would be a bonus, wouldn't it? It absolutely had to have a building that we could build on. It had to have all these things. And we came and we saw this bit of land. It was the third piece of land we saw on our trip last year. And we had a code saying that said, if we like something, the line would be, oh, you could grow tomatoes here. Because you don't want them to know that you're too interested, don't you? And we got to the top and we thought, oh my word, I could grow fields of tomatoes here.
Yes.
And so we looked into it, and this land, the barn was rural agricultural article. You couldn't do anything to it. You couldn't change it. You couldn't live with any of it. There was no electricity. The electricity stopped 104 meters, exactly 104 meters. We know because we've had electricity put in from our land. It didn't have running water. There were 3 wells, but you don't know if they're going to. By the way, if you're looking at land, top tip number 1: if you're ever going to look for a piece of land and it's got wells on it, make sure they replenish. When we emptied 2 of the wells to clean them out, they weren't self-replenishing, and you could get into a lot of trouble if you don't have. There is bucket loads of water, coming down at the moment, and our shelter is massive, and we're going to just turn it into this great big water gathering plant to provide us with 20,000 litres. Right? There are ways of collecting water, but make sure you've got some, because rural Portugal with no water is a difficult thing to negotiate, to navigate through.
Yeah, that you get to understand what the basics are, don't you, when you're in that predicament? Well said. And that is the difference between a hole and a well, then, presumably, is it?
Well, yeah, I've got some holes here. We were going to put a septic tank in this bit of land, and we dug a hole. And interestingly, we put the septic tank in the following day when we got out of the van. It was floating, which we found some sort of natural spring or water table or something.
Okay. So you have got water. It's just a matter of finding it there. That's incredible.
Of finding it. And we don't like boreholes, so it was a question of, well, the clue's in the name, isn't it? If it says bore, it's probably worth avoiding.
Yes. So let's go back to your lovely slideshow here. I mean, you've cleared that
sorry.
out. That's no, not at all. This is ready to work on here, isn't it? And they're nice, tidy builders, I got to say as well.
Unbelievably good, yeah.
That's the fireplace there on that you've.
Yeah, that would have been a fireplace that was in the building originally. We're going to use those stones probably in the building of the house at some point.
Incredible,
because they're fantastic lumps of granite.
And that's a different room.
That will all be used into the floor. So when they started, all the roof was on and everything, and you just said, "Well, why are you doing this?" Because the actual rafters of the roof maybe would have only lasted a couple more years, and then we'd have had to have done it anyway.
And that's why it got stripped back. That's why you removed that marvelous member across the top there.
Oh, it is a stunning piece of wood.
It is, and so they were slowly stripping away the to expose the timbers, take the timbers away, and do all that afresh, which is fantastic. And we'll go to some wider shots to see it in all its glory. But things are being delivered now, including some block that will be used as well, and soil being delivered as well. Some topsoil, is that for growing?
And for concrete.
Oh, that's sand. Okay, sand for concrete there. Fantastic. And there's another view as it's being stripped away. Or is that a different? That's the same one, isn't it? From a different angle.
Yeah, that's from the front of the house. There you can see Monsanto in the background. I mean, we really are on the slopes of Monsanto.
Beautiful, beautiful. And this lovely atmospheric shot, one of your builders there, just passing the door of the barn. I love the sound of the video. We've got another video to play, but the peacefulness of where you are on the bird song is absolutely wonderful there, Phil. So it's taking shape here. It's nice, isn't it, when you see a few stones in the ground, you can start to see things actually literally taking shape. You discovered some neighbours as well. Is that a bat you found?
Yeah, in the house we actually found a bat, and Andre is one of our builders. He's very clever around animals, and he built this little shelter for the bat to hang in all day, and then near a tree, and it flew off in the night.
Wow,
so because they're protected here as they are in most of Europe, so you want to make sure that you take good care. They're just to see it live was such a treat.
It looked quite big. I mean, how big is that creature?
Yeah, I think it was about like that, really, when he spun out.
Right, that's beautiful. A little stay at your place as well, and some longer views. Then this is so idyllic. This place. No wonder you thought you could grow tomatoes here. And a lovely shot there with all the. That's beautiful, isn't it? That's picture postcard stuff there, and a bit of foliage in the garden. So fair to say, Phil, it is coming together. Oh, let me just play the other video that I didn't get around to playing just yet. But it's coming together by the sound of it. Let's just watch a little bit of video. And that's your new friend, the bat there, obviously, who has helped on its way. Beautiful, beautiful. So are you pleased with the progress? And at this stage, would you recommend this journey to anyone else? Because you are living the dream in so many ways that other people have, right? Would you still recommend it?
I would recommend any journey to anybody, but make it a journey that you choose. So if you're sitting at home, wherever you're sitting at home, choose a journey. Make it a conscious decision. Say, I'm going to write the book and start writing 500 words a day.
Yeah.
Say, I want to come to Portugal, start looking into it. I mean, we started looking at Portugal only after we'd looked at Wales, France, and Spain, right? And realized that none of those were the right place. And my biggest baby step, and I'm going to make him blush now, was walking around the suburb of Leicester called Oadby, when we were camped up in COVID-3, the next generation. And I would go on a walk every day listening to yesterday's podcast of a certain Carl Munson and his joy and excitement about being in Portugal, which led Kimberly and I to decide that we'd better go and have a look. And he gave me another bit of advice, which he's probably forgotten, which was, when you come, spend a couple of weeks going down the old Spice Trail down the N2, which we did, which made us fall in love with both North and Central Portugal. And so, to my guilt, I still haven't been to the Algarve. I might be the one Brit in Portugal who's never been to the Algarve. But we will put that right at some point. But we knew that Central Portugal, we like a view of hills, so we knew it was the right place. But it was your inspiration. That was the baby step, was just listening to you every day. And Kimberly, I remember the first time I said, Kimberly, come and listen to this. She said, what's this guy talking about?
For so long. And for so long as well.
So how does he do that? How does he keep that going?
Well, we're 250.
I don't know what she was keeping going, but you know. Anyway,
250,000 downloads we've had now of the Good Morning Portugal podcast. So thank you for listening when you did, and thank goodness that it's turned out so beautifully. Love seeing the progress, Phil, says Mark this morning, and lovely project, Phil, says Simon as well this morning too. Good morning, people from Lee. And earlier on, Joao F was admiring your work. Oh no, but Simon admiring your work, coach, as well. And what a beautiful garden. Oh, that could be for both of you. That from Joao F there. Ian, Mrs. M, any questions for Phil? It's a calm atmosphere. We've taken the president's advice this morning, haven't we? And we're remaining calm, and I think we've been quite inspired by that view. Nice vibes this morning.
Beautiful view, Phil. Beautiful. So a couple of questions. One, are you going to put any insulation in the house?
yes, in answer to question number one, when the new roof goes on, be wood beam. We're using flat tiles rather than the round ones. So the old flat traditional pre-round tile, for a number of reasons. And then we will insulate that roof. The windows will be double glazed, but the granite rock is about 18 inches. I mean, it's really, it's double blocks. I don't know, my hands are going somewhere. It's kind of this slide, and you want to be able to have airflow through it. You know, I think this trying to seal water out is a huge mistake, because you tend to start sealing water in, and you want to have airflow, and you want to be able to just ensure that if there is moisture in, it's moving through rather than hanging around. But you still want to be warm. And Lady K has this special thing, and I'm desperately trying to say to her, really, do we really need it? But I can't, because she's Lady K. And so she wants warm tiles when she gets out of bed, right? This is a millionaire thing for her. It makes her warm tiles. So I'm finding a way of doing warm tiles under the bedroom floors around the bed and by the shower room, which is a special kind of madness. But we're British, so we do special kinds of madness.
So underfloor heating is what you're talking about?
Well, no, not really. You can get tile. It's like a mat with wire. It is, but it's not a full water bound trying to heat the whole house. It's literally just going to warm the tiles in certain areas.
Yeah,
and,
we have that. We have that up in our bathroom upstairs. And
do you love it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's thermostat controlled, so it only comes on when it gets cold. But downstairs, when we built down here, we put in proper water-based underfloor heating, and that's fantastic too. So I can recommend it. And it gets rid of things like radiators, which are ugly things and pretty inefficient, really. You think about it, if you heat the floor, where does the air go? It goes upwards, doesn't it? So it's the the Romans had it right. What did the Romans ever do for us?
Who knew?
So it's having and they're not hot, they're just vaguely warm. They just take the edge off it, really, and they're fantastic. We're blessed in that way. So that was one question, and the other was you still don't have a visa, do you? You haven't got residency yet. How's that
isn't
going?
that? Well, I mean, I call that a big universal moment. The universe really. I was going for D7 full on. I was going to get a residence visa and be here, and it took quite a long time to get the initial meeting, for quite a long time, and then it took them even longer to come to a decision, because it's a privilege to be able to come to Portugal. But a lot of us as expats, immigrants, whatever, we think it's a right. It is not. It's a privilege. And it took a long time, because there were some things that Seth weren't necessarily happy with. So if you follow the process like Mark did, he's a very good guy to get in. if you want to know how to really follow a process, Mark is very good on the detail. He was well prepped.
Yeah.
By the time they actually said yes, go to your meeting in Castelo Branco, I'd realised that if I got residency and Kimberly didn't, because for tax and work reasons and revenue streams and all the stuff that can invade under this heading of real life, from Kimberly for 2 months of every year. And that was for me, that was non-negotiable. I didn't want that. Our journey is a journey that we are on together. So I wasn't prepared to spend 2 months of the year with me here enjoying myself and her in London working. So I wrote to them and said, we've had a few life changes here. So I'm going to put my process on hold for now. I just want to make sure that won't go against me if I need to reapply, because I will definitely want to reapply at some point. They said, no, whenever you are ready, you come and reapply.
Brilliant.
So that's where we are with that process. But we will come and we will live here, because the great thing about Brexit is you get, after 90 days, we have to go back, right? And you might think that may not be great, but it does, because it gives you a comparative. It comes back to what I said right at the start. We go back to England and it reconfirms. I love England. I am so proud to be English, but I want to be here. And every time I go back, it just strengthens the wanting to be here more.
Fair enough. You don't hear that very often. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with England, but that what I'm saying that you don't hear very often is that, you know, people are like, well, I'm going to do this or that. You have a certain fluidity about your situation, which to me is about this whole thing about the genius of uncertainty. I think you were saying this before about the playlists and about having to make decisions. The human mind wants to do that. And I think inspiration and genius and creativity get shut down by that. Because on the one hand, we want to protect ourselves and our rational mind and our ego wants to keep us safe. But if you can live in creative tension, like arguably Vincent van Gogh did to a certain, you know, extreme situation that might not be recommended for most people, but somewhere in the middle there, right? Not trying to close everything down with dotting all the I's and crossing the T's, but living in a certain amount of uncertainty, that is quite unbearable for a lot of us, but actually very resourceful, very inspirational, very creative for those who can manage it, right, Phil? Is that where you are?
Yeah, I think so. I would say in my 40s, I was most uptight, typical senior manager, sales guy. Look at me in my flashy car and me flashy job, and got all the fleshy possessions, and actually had no joy, or really, I mean, other than my children who are a constant joy. I think it really comes down to the question that Mrs. M asked right at the start when she was reading that wonderful diary of a few years ago, where she said, you know, where it raised the question, if I know now, you know, if I'd have known then what I know now, would I have done it? Yes. And of course, we can't know what we don't know. All I can tell people, all I can suggest to people is take a first step to somewhere you want to go. You know, when MIT did the study on how many times people try things before they give up, the answer came back less than once, because you have the idea and then your rational brain takes over and says, you can't do it because of this, and this. And so people say, oh, well, I won't do it then. Do it. Have an idea and go and do something towards it and see where it takes you. You had the idea for a reason. You had the idea to go on your own personal journey to somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. Thank you.
Quite evangelical today.
Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
I've actually got a question, if I may. And also Solomon wants to show you his new dinosaur's butthole. That's exactly why he came over.
Fantastic.
See my dinosaur's butthole.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, Solly. Thank you.
Blame the parents.
But my question is, how? I mean, and you've kind of answered this I think just by just because you've obviously got such a positive attitude, but how have you kept yourself sane when you've gone through dark times? You know, when there's been difficulties and the progress has been stopped, how have you kept going? Because you know you're really putting yourself under some very extreme conditions in a way that not all that many I mean a lot of expats coming over buy somewhere that's almost livable or livable. You've set yourself a huge challenge, and I honour you for that because it looks wonderful.
That's such a you need a show. Anyway, let me try and pray for you. we
Yes, Joe.
we we poor old Ian. Sorry, Ian.
That's all right, mate.
Bobby Phil.
Carry on.
We already had our dream home in our camper van. So we already had the position where, you know, when we realized it was agricultural article, when we realized all the other stuff about this land that wasn't quite right, it came back to one key point, which was if all we could do is live in our van on this piece of land for the next 5 years, would you be happy? And she said yes. I said, then we have to buy it. So we already had the van. We're already happy in the van. So I think that was a good base as a place to go. The late great Jim Rowan was one of the first kind of management philosophers that I came across, and he was probably my stepping stone to then moving on to, as we all do, we go stepping stone from here to there to the next one, looking for the next answer to a question that we might have philosophically. But Jim Rowan had this one sentence, and it's a skill I'm still trying to learn. And the sentence is, if you don't let it bother you, then who's it going to bother? And it's the simplest sentence and a bugger of a skill to master.
Yes.
Right? You know, when you're driving in the traffic jam, I still want to rip out the guy who's just chopped me up because he's sitting in the same traffic jam and he thinks he's going to get there 5 minutes earlier if he cuts across me. But I just think of that one sentence and I start breathing, and I think breathing's a great skill. You know, kind of a life necessity. But after that, controlled breathing is, I think, an important skill. I have a very good friend called Jared Schuster, who probably none of you will have heard of. I met him through Infinite Possibilities. He does the most amazing breathing courses. He's online. He does Zoom. He does all sorts of things. Jared he loves Portugal. He lived on the Silver Coast. He's a surfer from the West Coast. He's now back in San Diego.
Let's bring him on.
But this guy, I will ask him if he will come on. Of course, there's a slight time difference, so it might be 2 a.m. Well, it's 2 a.m. somewhere, isn't it?
It sounds worse. We'll move for him.
I will. I'm sure Jared would come on. You will like Jared. I will get an introduction for you, Carl, and you can just chat to him because he's a show in himself. That guy. His story is a fantastic story.
Wonderful. Okay.
Thank you so much for answering that for me. Sorry, I wasn't very present during it. I was trying to navigate a 4-year-old meltdown. And on that bombshell, I'm going to wish everyone a bon fin de semana because I'm going to have to hop it off.
That dinosaur bottom is wiping, doesn't it?
Yes, this butthole needs some attention, and this one needs some food. So.
He says that about me.
Goodbye.
Okay, see you later. See you again.
Ciao, ciao.
All right, ciao. See you for a coffee in about 20. Okay, some lovely input coming in.
Okay.
Thank you. maybe a cafe chirino this morning. It is a Friday after all, but we got some lovely vibes this morning here. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Go on, Phil.
I just have a question for Coach. Coach, I saw that you were starting down the journey or giving serious consideration to your D7, and I know that previously that it wasn't going to be straightforward for you both to be aligned on that journey, as it were. And I just wondered if things had changed so as you've been over here a few more times, with your good lady wife, whether that had changed slightly, and you were
Yeah,
stepping along that path.
we're moving in the right direction, Phil.
Good.
We still have commitments here that are weekly, really, at the moment, and we've probably got another 18 months of those, maybe 2 years, and that's childcare type commitments. And the other issue we have is Leslie's mum, who is 83, or will be 83 this Christmas time, and becoming, let me describe it as more needy. So we have those issues. It's the same as everybody, I guess, who's thinking of similar moves. However, our latest trip, which was the Algarve, and the rather more busy part of the Algarve than we've been to before, it was just the weather. It's just being able to walk out with the t-shirt on and putting your feet into the water and just being, really. Yeah. It's A, relaxing, B, we're outdoorsy people, and it's a beautiful day today here, actually, to have the sun out, but it's been pretty ropey the rest of this week. It's been very wet, so you're sat indoors because all right, you maybe can go for a walk, but you'll get wet.
Yes.
It doesn't encourage you to get out of the house. Whereas we were down the Algarve, we were out doing stuff every day. I'm fabulous. I could train every day because of where we were, which was had this track, and I still owe you a blog, Carl, and I know that. No, it's half written. So,
no, I'm not checking.
We've had a bit of an emotional and busy week this week, so I haven't got round to it yet, finishing it off, but I will do that. But yes, so Leslie, we were sat at dinner in this lovely little Portuguese restaurant that we found, that we kept going back to because it was perfect. And a large, and I mean a large, glass of wine was about €2. So whereas the named bottles were 16, 20, 25 euros, some of them, whereas the house wine, which was equally good, was perfect. So I've learnt my lesson now. don't buy flash bottles. You just go for the house.
Perfectly good, isn't it?
Yeah, and Leslie said to me, she said, we need to look at how we're going to move and spend a lot more time here. Fantastic. Now, we may be able to do it within, as you have, Phil, within the 90-day thing, and that may work actually better than a D7, because D7, you do have to spend a lot of time in Portugal, which is great, and I'd be there tomorrow.
Do you know what? I've got news for you both. I don't know if you heard earlier this week, there was a news item about Spain relaxing the 90 days, which would have sent a shockwave through Brussels, I suspect. And then I hear similar talk now. There might be an Iberian uprising. Now, who doesn't like an Iberian uprising first thing in the morning? Portugal are having the tourism, the economy has been so badly hit by the threat of maybe keeping sort of the political aspects to one side. The fact that Brits are not in the country as much as it's just maths, isn't it? They're not in the country as long as they used to be. That is having an impact, and it's being missed. And that is really making outside the political realms, that is making a functional, practical effect on people's lives, and one that they don't like. So now Portugal and Spain are talking about challenging the 90-day rule. So that's going to be really interesting. And my goodness, that will be a game changer, won't it? If they just, not unilaterally, because there's two of them, bilaterally decide we're just going to do it. We have to put our people and our economy first. And we just can't stay with this rule. It's got to be people, not politics first. And that's going to be so interesting if that happens.
Well, the interesting thing for me is whether that would also involve freedom of movement for Portuguese and Spanish people into the UK.
Yeah.
That would be a really interesting thing. And maybe, you know, I mean, you Carl know my views of Brexit, and I'm sure. Well, I don't know actually, Phil, what your views are, but it's, you know, it's a complete disaster in my book, and was always going to be. So to see the first movement towards resolving some of the freedom of movement issues would be you know, as you say, a game changer. I mean, and it may just encourage the politicians here to begin to soften their views.
Yeah.
And I mean the ones in charge. They're not going to be in charge that much longer, but you know, they are at the moment.
Yes. Yeah. Well, interesting times. Keep your eye on that, folks, because that is, you know, it's just very interesting talk and speculation at the moment. But it's not unusual for Portugal to challenge the EU when they want to. They do it with car importation, don't they? And I'm sure they're not the only EU state to do that as well. There's just something they don't like, so they don't do it, and they pay the fine or go to endless meetings to talk about it rather than actually change the thing. So we shall see. 100 and look at this already. Amelie and Simon are calling it the 180-day visa. So you know, we're talking it into being, aren't we? And going back to you know, some of the more metaphysical stuff we're talking about here, these are perennial themes. Whenever the three of us get together and Miss Sim joins us as well, it's all about the baby steps and the intention, isn't it? It would appear it's here in the visa talk, it's here in moving to Portugal, it's here at the highest level, it's here in building your place. Baby steps and intention seem to be the governing forces of our lives here in terms of, you know, making the positive changes we want to see.
I think that's absolutely right. And I think, you know, the problem is if you don't do it consciously, then unconsciously you're still doing it, except the destinations you're heading towards may not be the ones you want. And to me that is kind of madness.
Yes.
To not choose where you want to go is a certain kind of madness. You know, we have up on our board, we had like-minded friends, which is up on our dream board, which, as you know, is on the roof of this van that I'm sitting in now. Our dream board is up there. We see it every day. It's filled with destinations that we want to go to. Like-minded friends. Well, I can't think of a more like-minded friends than Marcia and Derek. And yet there's no friendship app in the world that would have put us together. They're Muslim, I'm Jewish, Kimberly's a Salvation Army daughter. You know, it's like, it's almost a gag, isn't it? It's like a dad joke. You know, the one about the Muslim, the Jew, and the Salvation Army daughter.
Go into a Nepalese restaurant.
Going to the Nepalese restaurant, and one says, but we put the destination up. We didn't put the how. We didn't say this is how we're going to meet these people. But in going out and about and meeting with people and putting ourselves into positions where we met people, we have great like-minded friendships now. People who are, you know, people say, "Oh, can't read Facebook because it's only filled with blah, 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 whatever." No. Facebook's only filled with that for you because that's what you want to put in there, right? And if it's not doing what you want it to, then change your friend. Dare I say this? Change your friend. Seriously, have a look at, are your friends, you know, family and friends is a big thing. And I'm touching on a really sore subject. I mean, you want to go into this already I can get very controversial on this stuff. But the fact of the matter is I changed most of my family and friends because I found that actually when I analysed it, for a while, they weren't serving me in a way that was conducive to my own good mental well-being.
Wow. Wow, it's much poignancy this morning. This has been fantastic today. We never quite know what's going to happen, but it always turns out beautifully. But maybe that's because we take baby steps and have an intention. Who knew? So we're sorry to hear of this by Andy. Andy in the Bairrada. Also, the power went off outside. Sorry, no, that's the secondary bit. Bon dia, says Andy. Not been around for a while. We've had flooding downstairs in the half underground bedrooms and kitchen. Up all night trying to keep it at bay. Oh my goodness, shirt off like Bruce Willis sluicing out there by the sound of it. And also the power went off for Andy. We're so sorry to hear this, Andy. I presume the rain was shorting it out, but it was a salamander, not the stove salamander, but one of those little black and yellow lizards that had arced across the terminals. I found it. That's after the lovely bat conservation we saw.
Flying tonight.
You would have known very little about it, we hope, that little salamander. I found its corpse wound across them. You couldn't make it up. Well, I hope this situation changes for you, and soon, Andy. The drains and damp course, I think, got to keep mopping up until we have a few days of dry weather to dig up and investigate. Oh, my goodness. Well, all the best with that. That sounds awful. So, yeah, lots of love to you, Andy, from all of us here, hoping for a speedy remedy on that. Other commentary coming in regarding what you were saying, both of you this morning. Some lovely words from Joao. I take, if I wore a hat, I'd take it off for your projects. As a civil engineer, of the things I love doing the most is the recovery of old buildings, returning them to life and giving them a new soul. I am fortunate to have done quite a few of those works. That's lovely, Joao F, and I'm sure you'll be keeping an eye on Phil's progress, which I hope you'll continue to bring to us, Phil. It's lovely keeping up with your project there. No worries, Joao F, on the typing mistakes. Not a problem. We get your gist and your drift there. Victoria's in. Hola, bon dia, kids, from sunny Algarve as well. Emily,
hey, Victoria.
Your adventure is wonderful, Phil, from Amelie, who I think has found the right shop now that we were trying to direct her to yesterday. She also says, breathe in patience, exhale compassion. That's a lovely little tip for everybody who wants to practice some conscious breathing. It's mind over matter. I like along the lines of the Jim Rohn quote, if it's mind over matter, if you don't mind, it don't matter. Thank you very much. Just thought the slug would be on the same wavelength as us here this morning, because we control nothing outside of ourselves. He says one of our biggest challenges is to learn to manage the uncertainty of life, or to suffer. Absolutely. The uncertainty of life can be stressful, says Suze. The reminders of the intention help pave the way to eventuality. Intention and baby steps, the big hashtags of the day. And it's turning a little bit into that Jaws scene. You know, when all the fellas are on the boat comparing scars. We've seen your wood and rocks, as it were. We've seen your garden, Ian. Gary is not being left out of this. Totally agree with recycling whatever you can, Carl. But take a look. Who's that ringing me now? Sorry, let me just. They're ringing. I have my WhatsApp connected to the show, and then somebody wanted to sell me some cheaper electricity. Will call from time to time. Look, we're on the boat on Jaws. Ian has shown his raised beds. Phil has shown his big bit of wood, not to be left out. Garvo is in the garden with his big rocks. Check these out, ladies.
Oh, nice. I could do with one or two of those in my garden.
He has a big staff as well, like Gandalf there. That's a useful tool, the great big iron rod, isn't it, for moving rocks around with using leverage, not your back. Garvo is looking quite proud of himself there. He's probably in great pain, actually. But this is the end result. Look at that. The fruit of his labor. So, yeah, a few more rocks that got moved there to produce that result. Worthy of inclusion. Well done, sir. Anyone else want to send in big wood or big rocks? You've only got 7 minutes to do so. We have a Portuguese saying of the day, which is rather nice and I think community-based. Por ela, or u ela, eu ponho minha mão no fogo. For him or her, I put my hand in the fire. There is the bond of the GuMPers, isn't it? For him or for her, I put my hand in the fire. So you trust people completely, and you would do anything for them, including putting your hand across the fire there. We got a lovely 2-minute taster from Dougie to finish with. It's some lovely dancing from the Algarve. But before we go there, gents, we've got to do some dad jokes, of course, right? And the elephant jokes. Do you remember elephant jokes? When were they? Was that the 70s or the 80s, the elephant joke thing?
70s.
Are you shaking your head?
Mid to late 70s.
I don't recall them, to be honest. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Will remind me.
He hasn't got an elephant.
You get 4 elephants in a mini.
Oh, that's it. Yeah. 2 in the front, 2 in the back.
Yes,
there you go.
You remember?
Sorry, Carl.
How do you know when there's 8? There you go. This is the continuation. How do you
8 elephants in the church. No, I don't know that one. Even his parts, I'm going to them.
Hey! And
here's one for you then.
Go on.
Why did the elephant paint its balls red? To hide in the cherry tree. How did Tarzan die? When picking cherries.
I thought it's what's the loudest noise in the jungle? Giraffes eating cherries. Anyway,
Works, it works. There are so many.
both work, don't they? So we're taking people back here.
Actually, just
Very good.
to a slight side issue. We've been talking about baby steps. Well, how do you eat an elephant?
Yes,
What?
perfect.
Yes.
One mouthful at a time, right? I was going to say
That's
one
it.
step at a time, one mouthful at a time there. Garvo, you might need to reassert your elephant joke. The mere mention of elephant jokes had people rushing to their old joke books, I think. Like, it was Bob Monkhouse, wasn't it? Had books of jokes. They got stolen at one point, which took much to the relief of many people, but they were returned to him. Garvo, I can't find your elephant joke, but we missed this question earlier on. How much land has Phil got with his cute little house? Could you answer that one for us?
Yes, it's 4 acres or 1.6 hectares, something like that.
Hectares, right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's shaped in the shape of Snoopy wearing a Napoleon hat, if you can bring that image to mind. It's like, or an anchor.
Now you mention it. Yes, of course. I don't suppose it was described like that on the real estate listing, though. Hey,
No, but I didn't do that. Sorry.
Hey there, Banana. Who's she talking to? I fixed my sleep so I can't stay awake. At least next week there'll be more opportunities to be awake without worrying about going to work in the morning. Well, that's always nice. It was lovely to have you here for that brief time. I think Francis is already on the Twitter and sending messages into the World Cup reportage, which is fantastic. Morning, says Darren. Today is my last day of freedom because I've signed up to a boot camp for a week from tomorrow. What sort? Exercise classes from 7 in the morning. That sounds like fun to you, doesn't it, Ian? That's the sort of thing.
No. I would never do boot camp. I can't think of anything worse.
Oh,
I do
okay.
what I want. I do what I want to do in my own terms.
At about 10 o'clock.
After breakfast and coffee, and
Yeah, and after you've warmed your feet on the underfloor heating. Yeah,
exactly,
nice.
exactly that.
Darren,
Actually,
what are you thinking?
I just was having a moment about thinking about Phil's property in his house, and it reminded me that because my mum came from Pembrokeshire, right on the coast, and most of those houses are built of stone in a very similar way. All right, they maybe have a bit of sort of mortar stuck between the stones, but they are stone buildings and generally, as you said, 18 inches thick. But traditionally they coat them in lime wash, so that's why you see the classic white walls. But lime wash breathes, whereas modern paints and finishes don't. So that's why a lot of the older houses now are going back to using lime wash, because they don't get the mold inside, and you can be sure it's cold and wet in Western Wales.
Yeah, for sure. Isn't that amazing? Full circle.
Yeah, full circle.
Brilliant. Love the elephant jokes. Well, somebody is, which is good. We've another one for you here, and we've got the God Score tip of the day before we play the video. We did the Portuguese saying. Where's Garvo's? Oh, how do you know? Here you go for you, Victoria. Then, how do you know when you have an elephant in your bed? He's the one with the big E on his pajamas. Just when you thought,
How do you know an elephant's been in your fridge?
How do you know if an elephant's been in your fridge?
Footprints
in the butter. That's right.
So you do remember all of these.
What? Yeah, just off my head. What do you do if you see an elephant sitting on your fence?
What do
Buy
you do?
A new fence.
Buy a new fence. Ian, any more?
No.
That'll do, won't it? Honestly.
And just to kill it off, here's a frog one. Here's a frog one for you. What's green and turns red at the flick of a switch? A frog in a liquidizer. And that is all my jokes from the mid-70s. Thank you.
There you go. Available in a book ready for Christmas as a stocking filler.
I don't think so.
Okay. And and in the 70s, you could say jokes about liquidizing frogs with no concerns whatsoever. Now you could get cancelled by the RSPCA for such a thing, I think, there, Phil.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. And if anybody, if anybody is a lover of the humble frog, trust me, I've never done that myself.
Yeah. Yes. Don't
It was just a joke.
Exactly.
That was a thing, wasn't it? You could get away with as well in the 70s. It's just a joke. Well, it's not funny. Okay, God's got to. I didn't read this earlier on, Coach Turner. Could you share this with us before we roll VT, as it were?
Sure. Well, one of the things that athletes do a lot of is walking drills to get the particular motion that they need to use for whatever event they're doing correct. And they'll start off walking, and then gradually they'll over weeks and months and almost years, they'll do those same movements faster and faster. But they also do a lot of those movements backwards, because that improves the muscles, it improves your coordination, has a bunch of benefits. And one of the tricky ones, because it requires good balance, is a backwards lunge, which who doesn't like a backwards lunge?
They hurt.
So, in the same way as you lunge forwards, and then you can either just go for one step and come back, or you actually a walking lunge. You can do that going backwards, and it requires quite a lot of balance, and you build up your strength. So you start almost just walking backwards, and gradually you can bring your hips lower and lower, and it's worth playing with. Just try it.
And if you do this at your job, is it a working lunge? Thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's a good exercise to do. It helps balance. It helps your quad strength, your glute strength, all of those good things. So
and
worth it doing.
And to bring us back to intention and baby steps, please, your intention may well be to do a backward lunge, but baby steps with that. A little, if it hurts, stop. Then take it easy. Work up to something extraordinary. Don't just go straight in there with a look at just because you could do it in the 70s when you were telling elephant jokes doesn't mean you can do it now. Go steady with that, and send pictures as well. Look, the elephant jokes and the dad jokes are so beloved that they are now recycling. They're coming full circle. People can't stop themselves now. How do you hide an elephant in a poppy field? Paint his nails red. Even Portuguese people love an elephant joke. I thought it was a uniquely English thing. Elephant jokes must be globally ubiquitous. How do you bring an elephant down from the top of a tree, wait for autumn, and he'll graciously fall down in a leaf? Honestly, is that another one? How do you know? Oh, we already did that one, Gary. Thank you very much, though. Worthy of repetition. And I've got a few more before we roll VT. Dougie, thank you for this. With dancing in it, it's going to put a smile on your face for the bon fin semana. But I had a happy childhood. Thanks to T-Duck for these. My dad would put me in tyres and roll me down the hill. Those were the good years. Are we out of laughs now? What did the Portuguese fisherman say to the magician? I like this one. Pick a card, any card. And on that note, that's a really great way to go into the weekend. I know people are sort of sighing and slapping their foreheads, but they will be using some of these. Of that, we can be sure. Ian, thank you so much. Phil, thank you so much for being here. What a lovely chat we've had this morning. Intention and baby steps, everybody. And have a lovely weekend. Bon fin semana. See you, gentlemen, soon. Have a lovely weekend. Love to you and your families. And we're going to go out with some Dougie dancing now. Oh, and we've got if you want to hear Mrs. M laughing uncontrollably after our visit to Mercadona yesterday, where I tried the Merc Bifana, not the Mac Bifana, but the Merc Bifana at Mercadona at the opening in Caldash. That video is premiering on our YouTube channel. But here's a video from Dougie. Bon fin semana. Cheers, Ian. Cheers, Phil. Bye for now. Hey, bye. See you Monday. Ciao.
Good morning, Portugal, and it's a jolly fine morning right here in the Algarve. Time for one of our 2-minute tasters.